Life is not measured by the number of breaths we take, but the number of moments that take our breath away.
Oh, very good. Very
So Wayne, you may now.
Introduce the crew. You have met my lovely wife. She's the one that's got the little hearts and stuff on it. Not the fellow over there with the camera. That's my son, David. David, by the way, is co-author of this book, and we'll tell you more about that one. Just to make it clear, you are going to be part of this whole thing. It's not just me standing up here or sitting, okay, blah, 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 blah. You're going to get a chance to do the blah, blah, too, okay? So I will ask for volunteers, and I remember that when I was in the service, a volunteer was, who's going to volunteer you? I'll try not to do that. So anyway, one of the things is, why did I and how did I become an author at age late 70s, early 80s? And that's kind of interesting, partly because of Indiana Jones. Because when the first movie came out and everything, I saw the things that he had done, and I would say either I've done that, or I can do that, or I'd like to do that. When I was very young, and like 4 or 5 years old, my mother would tell me, you're nothing but a dreamer, and she was absolutely right. Well, when you don't have any material things, you have to have dreams. So I spent all my life, and it's on the card that you have, of a list of things that I've always wanted to do. And I will tell you, at my ripe old age of 31, I have done everything that I wanted to do, almost, except becoming an author. Well, then when I saw the movie, what was it, 81, something like that, Dave? I said, oh, that's cool. I've done a number of things. So I started to list a number of things, which you'll hear about, and I said, oh, yeah, that sounds something I should write down. Well, I was starting businesses, failing businesses, bankruptcies, kids in college, going into business themselves and the like, so it got out of control. Well, what we're going to do is, you and I are going to take a little airplane flight. And I must put my glasses on, but I only need them when I need to see. Okay. You're going to become my co-pilot. And we're going to be in a small plane, which my wife, by the way, helped me build in our garage. And she was courageous enough to go up and fly with me, even after I had crashed 1, 2, 3, 4. So I would call her, and it was just like any other day. By the way, I just crash landed into a bean field, and she'd say, oh, are you okay? Yeah. All right, I'll see you later. Well, it just become a norm, okay? So I was not that good at landing. I finally got pretty good. Okay, so now you're my co-pilots, and I'm going to ask you to say something. And when I raise my hand, I want you to say, as if you're somewhat frightened, your plane. And I will in turn say, my plane. And then I'll hold my hand up and say, your plane. I'll in turn will say, my plane. And I'll explain what that is. Now, if you watch Scully landing in the plane in the Hudson, that's exactly what he did. His co-pilot was there, he was flying, and he says, the co-pilot says to Scully, your plane. Probably somewhat anxious at the time. Like, what am I going to do with this plane now? There's nothing but water and buildings, okay? And Scully says, my plane. This is a way that a co-pilot and a pilot make sure who is flying the plane at the time. You don't need the thing of saying, well, I thought you were flying. There's the old joke about a couple of, and I'm not a old joke, I'm an elderly, a couple of elderly people that are driving the car, and the car's weaving and everything, and the one in the passenger seat looks over and says, you're weaving, and the one back says, oh, I'm driving? Well, it's kind of like this. So that will make sure that I'm the pilot, and we're going to tell a story. Actually, we're going to live the story. Okay, now to the story. And this will hopefully answer the question of how I became an author. So I should really have my headphones on and all of that stuff. And to be honest with you, we've done enough with the Indiana Jones. So I'm going to hot hat and a few things and a jacket. Okay, now, I don't have a whip, but when the kids were growing up, and they were not behaving too well. Now, I never hit them with a belt, but I want you to listen to this. Okay, so it sounds like it's a whip. So all I had to say was, I understand this was not a good day. And I said, do you want me to get out the belt? Never hit them with the belt. And I just would go, and they get the point. Okay. So this was my cheap old Indiana Jones type of thing. Now we're in an airplane. And we're coming in, and what's called a final approach, where you're coming in, you're making turns up ahead. Up ahead is the airfield and the runway. And so here's the story. Okay. The engine's purring along, everything's fine. All of a sudden, the sound that's the worst sound a pilot and a co-pilot can ever hear, they hear absolute silence. Because the engine has just quit. Now you're coming down, you're not speeding up any, you're not at the highest altitude. So here's the scenario. Co-pilot says to the pilot, oh, I guess we just ran out of gas. For reasons which I'll explain. We were bucking a very good headwind, and finally it became a gale, and we were just burning up gas. And we weren't quite to the airport yet. So we just ran out of gas. So his first reaction was, do you remember the words?
Your plane.
My plane. Okay. And then he looks again and say, you look again and say,
Your plane.
my plane. Okay, here's the story. And I will tell it first person. Oh my God, we've run out of fuel. What's the first thing we do? The first thing that we remember is always fly the plane, even without an engine. How do you keep in the air and keep from stalling and just dropping out of the sky? Quote unquote from the instructor, always fly the plane. There's only one way you can keep air moving across the wing so you can control it to some extent where you may or may not land, and that is you have to have gravity work for you. So your body wants to say, as you're approaching trees in a forest, pull up, pull up. Can't pull up, why? I don't have any engine, I don't have any power. The only way I can keep the air moving is to push down. So you push just enough down to get the gravity to speed you up a little so you stay just above the stall. And at that point, you now are controlling the plane. Where are you going to land? You don't have the slightest idea. You look to the left, it's houses and trees. You look to the right, it's a lake and trees. You look in front, it's the airport, but way ahead. You're never going to make it. And trees. What do you expect you're going to land in?
Trees.
Trees. Okay. You have a choice? I don't think so. If you try to turn left, you lose even more. You turn right, you lose altitude even more. So you can just ride it out. And like being on a roller coaster, you have no control. So as you approach, you're saying, I hope God gives me a reasonably soft tree. And as you come closer and closer, you grab your harness, seatbelt, you make it snug, and then you wait for the hit. So you then go crunch, and you're on the top of, 70 feet up, a tree. And you listen, first of all, to any groans from your co-pilot, and no groans. So he's okay. So then the next step is you say, all right, what do we do from here? As you realize where you are. And as you're thinking about what you're going to do to try to get some help, you start hearing cracking, cracking. And the limbs are coming loose. and low, and the plane is settling. Finally settles at about like that. And then you say, oh, but I've got 3 propeller blades that are grabbing into the limbs and they're holding us up. Ah, crack goes one of the 3. Now you're down to 2. Crack goes the second of the 3. And you're waiting. I hope this beautiful, wonderful propeller blade will hold the plane still in the air. That's the miracle propeller blade. That's the one that held the plane in the air. Okay? Now, I want you to say, it just passed by when I raised my hand. Oh, I hear the emergency service coming. Here they are, louder and louder and louder.
It just passed by.
Exactly right. Okay. They couldn't find us. Why? Because we were on top of the tree. And they were looking on the ground, humble up mess. So, how did I become an author? I said, Lord, if I live through this, if we live through this, I'm going to stay on the ground. It was number 4. And so, with discussions with my wife and family, we decided we were going to quit flying on a high point. Get it? A tree. Okay. So, that was the decision to become an author. The second decision. But, what are we going to write about? Well, let's see. I have all these lives I've lived. Why don't we write something about the airplane and the adventures and crashing the planes, and tell it from the viewpoint of the airplane, a little teenager type of female airplane. So the first book is this one we wrote. Now I'm going to ask for volunteers to just read the back of 4 books. And unfortunately, you're sitting so close, I'd like to have a volunteer and you.
Let me get my glasses out. Oh, that's big enough.
See, he picked you out when you came in, and he told me all to sit there.
Red, a tiny airplane, struggling to teach her half-blind and height-fearing pet pilot how to fly and stop him from crashing, especially onto trees. If Red survives and succeeds in her bravery, she dreams of being honored as a red eagle. No longer a red chicken. But along the way, disaster strikes which may destroy their friendship and her red eagle dream forever. I believe it is our born destiny to be together. Red.
Thank you. Just hold on to the book.
Oh, no.
Okay, now we have a second volunteer. This is called the...
Might as well.
That's why they didn't sit up front.
This is called the Dream Catcher.
Zach is a grandson who always took his grandfather's stories for granted, much like the others in his family. After all, by the time he was 75, his grandpa had done almost everything a person can possibly imagine, and has always enjoyed reminiscing his life of adventures with his children and grandchildren. But now Zach is a young man, and he realizes the time is getting short, that the older his grandfather gets, the less time they will have together in the future.
I'm going to die.
W.D. Evans, Zach's grandfather, now takes you and Zach on a journey through his strange life as a dream catcher. Along the way, as does Jack, you will learn to use the mysteries of your subconscious mind to show you the power of your own imagination. You too may discover what may lie in your own world of tomorrow, just waiting to be born, if you believe.
Keep the book. Okay, now we're going to talk about a bunch of bull. This one is W.D. Evans, The Man with the Lions and the Cat, with David W. Evans as co-author. So he was the co-author of this. And
Volunteers, how about that?
One of the Mexican soldiers yelled something at the other that I couldn't understand. He then stopped, got down on one knee, and was in the firing position, aiming directly at us. Jerry had come out of the old house by this time, hands up, and joined Don and me, already shaking. The other soldier rushed up to George, motioning with his gun. George carefully raised his hands, maybe for the last time.
Thank you. And latest one.
Who could it be? It's like being back in school. The teacher calls on you. Russian spies,
No, you gotta start with the title.
the spy that never was. All right, see, I didn't do well in school either. Russian spies, secret chips, dead moon men. One lone child with a fear of being lost and a passion to learn unknowingly travels a path leading to his discovery of secret government technology problems that could destroy the U.S. space program and the lives of courageous astronauts. Realizing that his special secret knowledge could be sold to the highest bidder, those in power are forced to believe he is a Russian spy, not once, but 3 times. Along his reluctant journey of endless mystery and suspense, he has been forced to learn that curiosity can kill, especially for the spy that never was.
Now, you were all given a sheet, and I don't even have one. There you go. There you go. No, that's right. I'll get one. Got one in for me, Annie?
Yeah.
Pass it on up. That would be fun. Now, this is top secret. This is a book that has not been written yet. Okay. Thank you. That's okay. And it's really a summation of all the books now and in the future. So, you're not off the hook yet. We're going to have some more reading here. So, you have read, or partly read, about the books on the left-hand side. Now, on the right, we have other volunteers to read the coming soon books. So, you have one?
Nope.
You do now. So start it just coming soon, and you can start at the next one.
The Survival Times 10 Chronicles, True Life Adventures of W.D. Evans, coming soon, riding the RCA Rainbow. Personal hidden secrets of the rise and fall of the global technology giant, lies and spies.
You
The
don't need
sil-
to go any further. Jane, I'm gonna pass that on and get you off the hook. See? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry, I interrupted you. My apology. Okay. Yeah, I thought you were continuing to go on and.
I just hadn't finished the paragraph.
Oh,
You want me to read it?
yes, do. That's you all the help.
The Silver Worms, Death of the Moon Men, one step never taken.
Thank you. You can just back up the table. Okay, the one-way ride. Let's see, we'll work around here. That's the second one down on the right.
Well, I just well get them out. Nancy?
If it comes this way, I'll have to get mine out. The one-way ride, the nightmare of a young engineer who discovers the secret of winning at roulette. Las Vegas, mobs, gambling streets, threats, blackmail, vultures, deadly choices.
Thank you. And since you all have one, we'll ring around the rosy. We have the Invisible You. Attractive young lady. She's getting out her glasses.
Here, but I don't have the
Oh, there we go. Got another one in there.
Number 3, The Invisible You.
Yes.
A poor young man struggles to find the truth of what others see in him that he cannot. No face in the mirror, not even a shadow. Secrets just others see, searching for self.
And pass it around, if you would, to the young lady on the right.
Soldier of Destiny, christened the world's worst soldier on his first day, an old sergeant makes him into a hero. Slums, death rays, segregation, snipers, training, deaths, rejection, spy awards.
Thank you.
Okay, are we there yet?
Yes.
An aging dreamer inventor tells of his 10-year journey of being invisible after discovering the secret answers to where have we been? Where are we now? Where are we going? Will the world finally recognize him as the father of 21st century GPS navigation?
Thank you. That was extremely important at this time because it was the summation of the cover on the book that says A Dreamer's Journey from Misery to Millionaire. Now, when you look on the back, I'm not quite as handsome as I used to be when I was a little kid, but you'll see a family. So you can interpret millionaire sort of like from the fact that it means riches. In this case, it was a young child that had nothing, and he dreamt of being sometime successful enough, particularly as an inventor, to have enough money to make sure his family would not live through poverty the way he had when he was young. So he was trying to make that $1 million to pass on to the family for their dreams to come true. So that's where the millionaire comes from. The interesting thing was the last thing she read, which was about the GPS. I was in my young, late 20s, early 30s when I had a difficult time when I realized that I would been awarded, I worked for RCA at the time, the #1 electronics company at the time, and I got my 10th patent. How did I feel, Annie, when I got home after my 10th patent?
Oh, let's see. I have done everything I ever wanted to do. I have nothing left to do. I've gotten my 10 patent award, and he was so sad. And I was so happy. You know, I was happy for him. But he was so sad that he got his 10th patent, and it was all he ever wanted to do.
Well, under that case, you're forced to say, what am I going to do the rest of my life? You have the card. So that's what I did the rest of my life. At that point, I decided I had all these dreams, and I would, one way or another, make these dreams come true. Yes, ma'am.
How old were you at that point?
My early 30s, like 33. So now we're going to go forward, okay? And we're going to go forward to the late 70s. And now it turns out I have an opportunity to realize my dream because there was the drive that says there's always got to be a better way. And that's why I was an inventor, that's why I looked at something, that's why I was accused of foretelling the future. I didn't. I looked at the past, I was a little historian, I looked at the present, and I said, all other things being equal, where will it be out here? And that kept RCA, GE, my other companies ahead of just looking beyond, out of the box, you want to call it that. So, in effect, I came up with the bucket list, and that's what's on that card. So, what happened, though, was then it took 15 years from my late 60s when I invented this improved GPS technology to get to the point that anybody recognized the value. When they did, we had 3 glorious years of helping the family. And to the net result is there are 85 international worldwide car companies, tractor companies, whatever, that have paid me money to use my technology. And I still own the patents. I do everybody. Now, are they worth anything? I don't know. We pretty well milked it. But it was a pretty good ride for about 3 years, being able to help the family start businesses and improve their lives. So that's why it's important to me. And it just says it's never too late to make your dreams come true. And that's what I've always done. Yes, ma'am.
How many children do you have?
4 children and 7 grandchildren, and you have hit the nail on the head. The reason is I'm going to tell about this story. And I hope you don't get afraid too much of polar bears and things like that. And I'm going to read the back of this one. Okay? Okay. And you've seen the phrases. Searching for the good war. Can one lone man alter the destiny of the entire world? By W.D. Evans, A Man with More Lives Than a Cat. Arctic explorer, survivor, soldier, pilot, artist, musician, gambler, entrepreneur, teacher, author, and lover. That's a key point. Okay. A reluctant hero's journey of fear, hate, and hell in search of courage, love, and salvation through the frightening threat of Arctic atomic war. It was 1959, 1960 when there were parts of our Cold War with Russia, and I was stationed 50 miles from the Soviet Union, waiting for their bombers to fly over. Okay, so I was 50 miles away, and they were going to be flying, if they did invade, North Arctic Ocean, Alaska, over the North Pole. So that's where I was. I was 23 years old, and I was supposed to be part of our national defense. Since hated war had already slaughtered his father, brother, and best friend, which is part of the introduction, he becomes forced to become an Arctic secret agent battling lies, spies, and wild beasts. Wow. To find the secret to stop global nuclear war. And I did confront lies and spies and wild beasts. But for this young veteran and his bride-to-be, war may not be their path to total destruction. Instead, the mere threat of war, they set the stage in the drama to find a golden road in their frightening journey to discover unconditional love together. So it's not just suspense, and it's not the beasts. It's a story of unconditional love. So when I got out of the Army, didn't have much money, didn't have enough for a marriage license, I said, would you marry me? And with very little hesitation, she said yes. And then I said, but we don't have any money, so we can't get married, and I have to get a job. Well, while I was in the Army, I had been trained in secret government communications. So after 90 days of trying to search for a job, and what do you do if you go to someplace for a job and someone says, what have you been doing for 2 years? And you said, I can't tell you, I have to kill you. That doesn't go over too good. Got a letter, and the letter was from a government agency, and he says, aha, you're just what we need and want. And so I trained, and I went up, and I thought, I'd be number one in this 3 months of training, and I can get a great job in Anchorage and everything. They sent me to the bowels of the Arctic, which was the Arctic Ocean. Why? Because I had a lot more knowledge than anybody else, and it was the most critical site on the Alaskan protection system. So it's based upon the author's declassified secret Arctic survival missions. I read that because the title is True Life Adventures, because they basically are my life. Now, in the authorship and readership there, you know we are allowed to embellish slightly, and that's why I'm under the category of historical fiction. Okay, even though the vast majority is historical, I still included the fiction, because occasionally an author has a tendency to lie. So, anyway, that's the way I get off the hook. Okay, all right. We're going to bring up a couple of things that deals with Indiana Jones. And that is, when I heard or saw the movie, and then I compared the things he had done, and then I compared to the things that I had done, and I hadn't even crashed airplanes 4 times yet. And I hadn't reinvented GPS yet, any of this. And I looked at all the things, I said, wait a minute. He encounters natives in the jungle, and you remember the rolling ball coming down and all of that. I didn't encounter natives in the jungle. No, I encountered Russians coming over in bombers in the Arctic. Did they know? But I had to be on 24/7 alert to do that. So every time he had something, I said, Mine wasn't quite that, but it was just as scary and it was just as death-defying. So what was scary and death-defying? And then we're going to move on. What was scary and death-defying is being confronted by a polar bear that wanted to tear apart a survival hut to get food. And you could hear it banging the pots and pans and jokingly probably trying to find a can opener. But I have a picture of these big footsteps, and when I began to hear the growl and everything, because my truck engine had failed, and I was trying to get to a survival hut in the Arctic, I heard that and I said, nope, we'll kind of sneak on back. So the question came up. He was looking for dinner, and we kind of jokingly said we didn't know quite who was going to be the main course. So decided that enough of that. Later on, it turns out that, in fact, I'll back up. And back up the very first day, my friend takes me up to the site, a mile high on top of the mountain with all the radar and everything, and you look across, and there, you might remember pictures of Adolf Hitler, and he's looking across the French border, and he sees the white cliffs of Dover, and he says, I got to invade them. Okay, you could stand on this mountain, and you could look across closer than that, and you would see basically where the Russians had their Air Force, and they had their bombers and the like, which was pretty scary stuff. So, anyway, we're up on top of the mountain, and things begin to occur. My friend gets sick. We always had two people there. It was 24/7, so we rotated. And he got sick, so we had to call down, and we had to get him. But just before that happened, on my very first day, we're going up this winding road, and stupid me asked the driver, does anything exciting happen here? Boy, why I was opening up a can of worms, because almost the very next turn comes a big burly caribou, a second cousin to a reindeer, but much meaner. And he's coming around, and basically he attacks the truck. But he had a change of mind, because just as he's about to plow in the front and knock us off the top of this narrow road off the mountain, he changes his mind and moves slightly, and I can still remember the screech as he's scraping the side of the truck, and the truck is doing this. So we didn't actually lose the battle, but we got pretty close. And the joke in the book, this one here, was I said, that's a strange welcoming committee, and I haven't even got my first paycheck yet. And that was the first day. I said, well, I hope I don't run across that anymore. Well, it turns out I was wrong. But before that, other things happened. The polar bear, a big storm, would you believe, 135, 140 mile an hour, hurricane at 95 below zero. I think our weather sometimes is bad. I was alone. And the story here, which I could read part of, how are we doing on time?
I don't have a timepiece. You're looking.
Good.
How we doing on time?
I am going to read.
You got 10 minutes.
I am going to read
Timekeeper's here.
very quickly. And we were allowed a dispensation because we started late. Okay, here's a couple of excerpts. All right. Here is near the beginning. This is the introduction. I won't tell you what happens, but my mind tries desperately, let's see. No, wrong page. Okay. In the Army, training, he meets his friend, George. They become good buddies. George is totally fearless with a courage I can only imagine discovering myself one day. Yet almost 3 months together, I have discovered my fearless friend is afraid of one earthly creature. No mere human, but greasy, slimy snakes. Now, remember the movie. Da, 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 da. The real Indiana Jones was afraid of snakes. Another bomb explodes so close that I can no longer hear it. Instead, as a wild beast of war, its concussion roars deep within my bones. After this eternity of swimming in frigid winter mud together, Fort Benning, Georgia, my friend suddenly stops. For us, time now stands still. Of our many months of training together, the past months, days, weeks become nothing but an instant of evil silence, overcoming our world of hell. He panics when suddenly one of his slimy enemies squirms up against him and strikes. I know George well. I know what he will do now. What he must do, as if to force me to take part in this deadly battle for life. This demon of slimy mud holds back my struggle to grab my friend's slippery boots. I miss. This is live bombs, live machine gun, so you can imagine. Second part in the back here is he's up on a mountain. He's alone. The violent storm. His friend is picked up, but they can't come and get him because the storms come up so bad. In David's disintegrating mountain refuge, 135, 140-mile winds, the last lifeblood of human warmth is being sucked out of him as the wind whistles through every widening crack and crevice, creating the screams of 1,000 bats. Even shreds of his undershirt jammed deep in his ears cannot keep the growing deafness away. The shattered glass of his small observation windows becomes ever sharp shrapnel hurled into his thick but fragile parka. The accompanying glow of electric lights once powered by giant buried cables and massive generators clicks in a dance with death. After what he feels like an eternity of freezing and struggling to keep some semblance of life in his failing communication and himself, David collapses on a table. He is forced to be next to the only source of warmth he has left, the lethal power radio transmitter. Its protective doors have been torn open by the violent shaking of the building. The dying but still powerful giant transmitter tubes spew forth deadly radiation. The same lethal forces of human annihilation unknowingly unleashed upon mankind by the first atomic bombs used to end World War II. What was my concern? Freezing to death. What was the second concern? If I lived, could I ever be a father? 4 children, 7 grandchildren. Okay? So I thank the Lord for letting me get through that. All right. So, that's that one. And I will consult my schedule here. Okay. All right. We're at the point now where you are the ones that are the authors, and you look at the books and you say, I never would have wrote it that way. Here's your chance. You have a little bit of an idea of the various books. So here's the question and answer. Looking at your sheet, looking at the list of the books, the ones now, the ones to come, it's your time to ask questions, and I'll try to fill in. I still have a fairly decent memory of things, mostly the dramatic events.
Are all
So-
of these in the process of being written? So
Yes.
you're writing
Yes.
5, 6 books at a time?
Yep. And you may ask, why did I write these particular books? I put words in the mouth. It's because as I thought through certain events, like the small airplanes, I had just landed in a tree. And I said, that's a good time to write a book about the end of my flying career. So as we sat down, my lovely wife and I, we went through what would be some of the other ones to do. And then I began to realize that I was getting older. And the book we have written here with Zachary, my grandson, who was part of that book, was worried because I was getting older and he didn't know how long I would be around. So I feel reasonably good in spite of a couple of things with the back. my knee, let's see what else.
I think we can we all
Stroke,
yeah,
brain
do that.
concussion, crashing plane 4 times, you know. Other than that, so I said, you know, I think the thing to do is split things up. Let's take a little storyline and let's write a short book. And that's why there's a sign back there that says the Lunch Break Library. These are the series of books that you can pick up, read, ebooks, whatever, and eventually audiobooks within a lunch break, an hour. You could read the book. And we said someday we may just bundle them all up, maybe not. So I said that's the way we'll do it. So that's why we wrote a series of smaller 1-hour books. And then Annie and I went ahead and said, well, where is the most exciting part? And that was our young life, young couple. Me's telling her I have to go to the Arctic to get the money to go to school and get married. And that was very emotional. And it was extremely emotional in the 3 years it took us piece by piece to put that together. In the meantime, we're thinking of the other ones and what we want to do. And so I learned a lot of things about what she was doing here for not quite a year and a half in Chicago without twiddling her thumbs. Literally, she was a bridesmaid, never a bride during the time with relatives. And she had a pretty good idea of what I was doing, but I couldn't tell her. And somebody that you have gained a trust in, you cannot tell someone you love just what's going on. Either technically, legally, government-wise, or scared the hell out of her. Okay, because it was pretty rough. And the last scene in the book was a scene that I have to relate to you on that. In a book, it was chapter 3. It was after you get through the gold and you go up and you get the dilemma, and then you go from reactive to proactive, traditional Campbell type of book. And then you come down, you think, oh, everything's going to be great, off into the sunset, you know, the prince and the princess and all of that. That's called the Disney ending. This wasn't. This was the one that when you get down, you watch a 2-hour movie in the last half an hour, and we can pin it down to a minute when then all the fit hitches here. You know, everything just goes. So here I am, coming down the last day. Remember the first day? Coming down the last day, I'm about halfway down, turn the curve. I now see the narrow road still ahead. I can almost see where I have to go, where the plane is waiting, if you will, to take me back. And I run into, almost literally, a herd of stampeding caribou, 24. 3, I swear, the one in the middle with the glassy eyes was the one that picked on me the very first day. So anyway, I said, this ain't gonna work. I'm not gonna stay here. And Annie has a saying, and the saying is, no, not there, not in that terrible place. You know, you haven't even loved me yet. Come home to me, okay? In my mind, the letter. And so I see these caribou, you know, like this, because I'm infringing upon their territory. And I see the 3 bucks, and off in the distance, I see, oh my God, I didn't take time to count, but I took a picture. I was always taking pictures. So I got a picture of these 3 caribou attacking me in this truck. Now, I have to explain this truck. This was not a normal truck. This was basically a tow truck. It had a big hook on the front where they lifted vehicles. It had no muffler because nobody cared about the noise, okay? And it had no shocks, so if you want to stop, you know how that would do that. So I said, besides my trusty camera sitting right here, what have I got? I got this crazy monster of a truck, and I said, I bet you I can scare the hell out of those caribou more than they're trying to scare me. So, and since it had no muffler, I just went, vroom, 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 and I rocked it back and forth, and I lowered the hook, and the hook was like a big horn, winging like this, and they got the point. They turned around, and as in the book, as Annie really enjoyed the phrase that says, and then he attacked them. So 3 at a time. So in other words, he took on 3 and then he took on the rest. They got the hint. When the leaders left, they turned around and they went the rest of the down the mountain. So anyway, that was the gory part of the story. I interrupted you. Anyone else that has something you'd like to ask me about any of the stories here? How did I learn how to figure out how to win on roulette and get in trouble with the Las Vegas mob? All right, buddy, you get the heck out of town or we're going to take you on a one-way ride. Okay? I'm a scientist. I kept watching and said, life is not random. There's a reason. And that brings me up to, what is your reason for being here? Do you believe in destiny? Do you have a dream? A dream that you have to believe you can make come true. And if one doesn't work, what do? You try another one. And if that don't work the way you would like it to, you learn from it. There's no such thing as failure. It's learning. You move on to the next one. So that's the idea behind this whole thing. Anyone like to volunteer why they feel that they are here?
God's a good Lord put me here.
What is your mission in life? What are you supposed to be doing? When you're getting a little older and you look back, what do you say? I'll tell you why I'm here. I'm here because you're here. I'm here because I learned the hard way that there is always light at the end of the tunnel. There always is a way to have a dream come true, but you have to work at it. 15 years before I got any money out of my patents, and I was now late 70s, early 80s. I was an artist. 15 years before I got recognized as an artist and finally had one of my paintings show up in a prestigious art museum in New York. Okay? 15, 20 years of building electronics to help the elderly, sort of super help me stuff and the like. Didn't know why, till one day when I had to move my mother up from Florida. She was getting older, into a retirement community. I walked in. I had sold the company a few months before. There's one of the things that I had invented. Now I knew that I had done that to help protect her. You never know what life will bring. So, I have, if I can find it here, a couple of more sayings, one in particular. If you can't put your finger on anything right now, you love books, why not gamble and take your story? We all have stories, and put it down. Don't worry about trying to make a lot of money. Don't worry about any of that. Just think, I'm doing it for me, my family. Whether they read it or not doesn't make any difference. Annie and I learned so much about each other after 56, 57 years by writing our books. So, there is 25 again. There is no greater sorrow than a dream that's died before it was ever born. Give birth to your dream. There's always a way that you can make something of your dream come true. So you can look back and say, I did it. So thanks to you allowing me to come here. Thanks to Jane. Thanks to Sonny. And a cup of coffee later on. Thank you for coming, because that's why I'm here. To try to show you that you have things inside you that need to be told about, written about, maybe even a movie. Okay? So, believe in yourselves.
That's going to be my question. Have you had anybody try to do a movie?
Not yet. Not yet.
What will happen before you're done?
Well, now that's the next step. I got a few books to write. The one that's the most important is the big one that you have the sheet of. And that's, now, we have a couple of things. I'd like to go into movies, screenplays, like to do audiobooks. We're getting our ebooks going, and on and on and on and on and on. Now, those of you that were kind enough to read the back of the books, would you hold the book up for me? Okay. It'd be pretty chintzy of me if I took them back. That's my pleasure.
Thank you.
And, and if you really want, I'll autograph it. Now, the last one is, we have a drawing for the door prize. And I have to ask you this question now. What's the whole idea behind the group? What do you love to do?
Reading, sharing, talking about our books.
Okay, what do you suppose the door prize may be? Okay,
Yeah, no, there.
there it is. Now, who's going to draw out of the bucket? You want to draw? Let the young lady next. There you go.
Pick them all up, yeah. There you go. Okay. How about if I read the last three numbers, if I could see it? 2, 2, 3.
Oh my gosh, that's me.
Give it back to me and I'll be happy this autograph.
Oh, that'd be wonderful, thank you.
Okay. Any more questions before we say to you, we did bring David.
She had a question.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
What did you study in college?
Engineering, among other things. I got 2 degrees in 4 years. One, I also had a little bit of technical stuff. So one was a Bachelor of Science in Electronics Engineering, and then my Purdue was Electrical Engineering. Okay, I went in and I got a Scotia MBA. Now, anybody can remember the phrase Scotia? I mean, almost. Married, children, the whole thing, it didn't quite get. So I took a number of courses and never quite got it. When you get to a certain point in life, you say, big deal. Who am I trying to impress? Am I trying to go on and get a job with somebody, show my resume? No, you have confidence in yourself. You got things to offer. That's what I'm trying to offer. So I'm not worried about it. Yes, I was at a meeting one time many years ago, and I guess they liked my talk. It was an engineering meeting. And I get a letter from Upper Slope over here or someplace, and it referred to me as Dr. Okay, Wade Evans. And I said, ooh, okay. So I got an envelope that says Doctor. So that was it.
And also, did you have formal training in writing?
I started when I was 12. I entered a contest with my best friend in grade school. And it was a gamble because he said, we don't know anything about this. I said, let's write it anyway. And we wrote, the topic was Free Enterprise for Peace and Prosperity. We're 12 years old. What the hell do we know? Okay? Anyway, he won first and I won second. And it was countywide or something, you know. So that started. And I wrote poems in the Army to that young lady over there. And guess what she found after we were doing search work in the closet somewhere? A book of the poems that she had transcribed and put into the book. So that was in my Army career. Okay? So I've been somewhat theatrical. My apologies there. Believe in what's important, believe in the journeys, believe you can have them, believe you can live a better life. When we filed for the patents in the year 2000, Annie and I had kids in school, we had debts, charge cards, mortgages, all of that, and we did it anyway. And then it came back 10, 20, 30-fold of what we invested in it. And we were able to help them, our family. And so my son there, the co-author of the Bullet One, has now become a deacon in his church. He's always felt a leaning towards counseling. And so I'm just very proud of everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sonny. Thank you. Yes, young lady.
Yeah, I'd like to know, you told me that the walrus gave you a souvenir to take home.
Yes.
Yes.
I forgot to tell the walrus.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, close to the last day before I got home, ran over by the caribou, I said, okay, I'm courageous now. I've gone through storms. I've wrestled, not quite, but anyway, I've confronted polar bears, all of that. So I don't need anybody to hold my hand and I'll walk along the Arctic Ocean. So I walk along the Arctic Ocean and I hear this screaming and yelling and grunting and everything. So I'm courageous, but I still know where to slink behind a little hill. So I slink behind the hill and there's a battle going on. And I wasn't sure what it was all about. So I said, I'm just going to cool it. So I waited to the battle and I heard some whining, some screaming, dying going on. Then I waited for a while. So then I snuck around the corner and I said, I wonder what happened here. There was blood, there was other things around. And evidently it was a battle for food or a mate. A couple of big burly two-ton walruses, okay? Now, if you don't know what a walrus looks like, that's a real deal. Okay? Now, you notice something's missing. Okay. Now, who took my tusk? The tooth fairy. I was a tooth fairy.
You got it.
Did you think?
Oh.
Oh, my
God.
Beautiful.
And look at the end.
Yeah,
He had a rough time of it.
yeah.
Over the years, pieces have broken, glued. I would pass this around. It's quite heavy, but it's got sharp, and I don't want to hurt anybody. But anyway, this is the tooth. This is the tusk.
Wow.
That's what the walrus was kind enough to give me as a going away present.
Oh, my goodness.
So I could get back. I have a lot of other things too. Some wedding dolls that an old Eskimo customer, a lady, gave me when we visited Nome in our travels. And they were wedding dolls, so I've got those at home. They have real fur, everything just like a real parka. And so, but I needed something else. And so this was a little bit of a proof that I was really there. And the events are true life stories. Okay? Well, I hope you've had a good time. I hope that you will, not that we plan to make that much money off of it, would be nice if somebody would get one of the books. And she's got little signs there. The short books are $10 and the larger one here is 20, except for you. And except for you, okay? So, yes, ma'am.
I have a question, might be crazy, but I don't really care. What do you think of the North?
That's a good attitude.
I've had it all my life. Ask my husband. What do you think of North Korea? What's going to happen? You've been up there, you know what it's like.
I was up with the Arctic, but
Yeah, but it's still.
I was a young kid during the duck and cover times. And part of that is in one of the other books too. We had gone through as a young child, through the Second World War. There's a part in here that very graphically describes what happens when you have a nuclear war. And it's a redo of Hiroshima, Nagasaki. And there's parts in this book that kind of predict what would happen. And I won't tell you the conclusion because it's called Searching for the Good War. Now there's two searches here. One search was the meaning of life, if you want to use that trite phrase. It was, why am I here? And the other search was, is there a way that the governments of the world will realize that the only way to win is don't fight, don't have the war. There was a game, a movie years ago called that, where they did a war game thing with a computer and it got out of control. Okay. So, I don't want to give the story totally away, but there was a realization up there of what made a good war. But you gotta read it. And so it's the thing that with pride, that it was 1959, 1960, the Russians are shooting down Powers, our spy ships and all of that. We were invading or taking over their fishing trawlers, which were spy ships. They were listening to my sight, and because my sight was going down, they spotted that, and they were waiting for it to fail. Okay, it didn't fail. Okay, and the net result, they did not seize that opportunity as the first preemptive strike. My feeling and pride at the end of all of this is, even though we have North Korea right now, and basically Iran before and whatever, there has never been a predicted nuclear holocaust since 1960, since I hoped in the book the world woke up and said, we don't want to go there. Okay. Our problem now is we don't have the Russians that can negotiate with the United States. We got all these splinter type nuclear weapons around. And now, they're not the fat boy. They're not the things that we did in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Now, they're in a suitcase. Okay? And so, what do I think? I think the answer's still the same. There has to be a realization that nobody wins. Once you start it, with the amount and the strength of the nuclear weapons today, it's not 100, it's 1, it's 2. 1 here, 1 there, tit, tat, boom. So I just hope that no one else in the future, beyond my time, will ever experience just the fear of a young child, duck and cover, and should we or should we not build a bomb shelter? And then later on, the fear of being placed that close to your enemy, and that became nothing compared to the fear, because that's maybe, became the fear of freezing to death, and became the fear of dying of radiation poisoning, or at least not being a father. Okay? The one book that, it's gone now. Anyway, the book about the bulls, broads, and bullets that David helped write, that was all in one day. There's 3 episodes. And episode 1 we went in and we wanted to do, after a week of just at a conference in Texas, we said, let's take a day and let's go down at the weekend, go down to Mexico. In one day, we did some battling for some bullhorns, which are on my fireplace. Second of all, we got confronted and chased by a group of teenage female prostitutes. And third of all, in an attempt to escape, we made a wrong turn and wound up being confronted by mercenaries with machine guns protecting a drug lord's stash. All in one day. Okay. So you say, am I Indiana Jones? No, but I'm awfully close. Did I answer your question? I didn't. I hope we never have. But
Want me to be honest? No.
I would hope that at least on the North Korea side, they're intelligent, no matter what the rhetoric is, to say, no, we're not going to do that. I hope that on the American side, we can also say the same thing and not just get carried away with this flamboyant language. But,
Of course, we don't.
yes, anyone else? Okay, the books are over there. I have a pen, and the ones that are here, I'd be happy to do that. I normally would scribble quite a bit, but if you don't mind, the for the number of people, I'll just write my signature here, which will not be valid in a bank. Besides that, we gave all our money away, so. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.